So depending on where you decided to start, to me the obvious choice is part one, the C block. If you picked the pins or you picked the arm, then just jump over to those videos and do them in the order that makes sense to you. As I mentioned in the overview, my initial strategy is kind of to draw this C shape, get that geometry in. Notice the symmetry. And then the overall height, well, let's see, looking for the gap. So since that is 10 millimeters, we're going to go line to line and then we'll decide what kind of clearance since I don't see a 10 millimeter gap in there. So let's go into our part and metric. And I will, while that's loading, I will fly this out of the way. Alright, so the front plane would be pretty good. And it's not critical that this geometry, when we go into the assembly, looks exactly like the isometric and the diagram. So as long as we've got our parts, I'm not concerned about the orientation. So let's go with, let's see, my Command Manager is collapsed. So if you have collapsed it, just a quick reminder, you can push pin and keep it in place so that we can go to the sketch tools. Or if I just come up to the feature tab and press on the tab, that will bring us into those tools. What I would like you to get used to is the S key. If you prefer the donut, I think my donut is turned off, so right click and hold down and drag to the right will bring up the circle, and you can customize those kind of like what we did in earlier video. Let's see, just looking at that, I changed my screen resolution to get a little better view, so need to bring the feature tree over just a touch. So in the S key, if we go to a line or a corner rectangle, I'll just start off to the side. And then I have selected the origin and control selected the vertical, and that can be at the midpoint. So that's kind of handy if, since this does have symmetry in it, that I can take advantage of that. Let's do this with the line, and then I'll back out of it and introduce a new tool. So if I go this route, I'm going to have a region and a region, and the region that I want to extrude is this C shape. So if I control Z out of those, there is another tool, and that's going to be Tools, Sketch Tools. And I don't get a chance to use it too much, so we go into jog line and we grab a point and draw the rectangle and then click. It draws those three lines and trims out the remaining. Okay, so I don't think, oh, it did let me out of that. So then the choice would be to draw a center line from the origin to the midpoint, or midpoint to midpoint as the case may be. Or I can right click. Well, if it'll let me have it, I can, nope, I'm still in jog, so I want to be careful. I still have the X there. Escape on the keyboard or come up to the upper right corner. All right, so let's select midpoint, hold down the control button, I'll grab the origin, and those can become horizontal. What that's going to do is a certain amount of symmetry, even though I'm not generating symmetric relationships, I am by the midpoints going to have that that relation. All right, so 20 and grab the midpoint. That wasn't what I wanted. So 20, and we said that the arm was 10, and then we have a depth of 40. And the depth of the C is 15 from the back. All right, so that gets my geometry. Now theirs looks a little bit thicker, so this may be one of those cases where, again, I want to mark this for the drawing, and we'll see if this time it comes in correctly. Let's see, did it? It did not give me the op around, and I'm not seeing the pop-up. All right, so it did mark it for the drawing, and select it. Oh, I selected the one too low, so make sure I'm on the dimension text, not the kind of the notation. All right, so that would be something that if I insert it for the drawing, hopefully that will come in and be a reminder to verify my geometry. So feature extrude. Could have also right-click, and we don't have a body to go up to, so I need to be in the mid-plane. And we're 15 millimeters to the center line. There's not specifically called out for 30, but I think we can safely assume 30. I'll go ahead and select. Now the hole wizard, the simple hole through, if I hit the S key and go to the hole wizard, then let's see if we'll get the tooltip. Okay, so standard hole, ANSI metric drill sizes. If you use the dowel pin, that's okay. The dowel holes in the drawing come up with those little target symbols. So I want to reserve those a little more where I need them. But for the most part, I think they kind of get in the way. So 14 millimeters up to next, and its position will be, as soon as it catches up, position. So we'll put that on center line. Oh, and I hit something and got out of it. So for starters, we'll go back in and edit feature. So right-clicking on the hole wizard, and I'll try not to get button happy. Escape. Select the origin. Select the point for the hole wizard item. Make horizontal. Okay, so I got the horizontal over there. I've seen a little video lag. So, and then 13 millimeters off of the front. Okay, so we'll go ahead and accept that, and the up to next should stop it before it goes through the part. All right, so the M12, clicking on the face or rotating over and clicking on the face, we can go to the S key, pick the hole wizard, and then we want to go with a straight tapped hole. Shouldn't really matter tapped hole or bottoming tapped. A lot of times I'll just leave those because if it is a blind hole, we'll have a little better sense of that geometry. So going for an M12, so in metric, the M12 is the major diameter and the pitch is 1.25. So from crest to crest or root to root, peak to peak of the thread will be 1.25 millimeters. 1.5, that would be about 60 thousandths, 1.75. All right, so going from a fine to a medium to a more coarse. So probably with the standard, I'll go with the 1.5, and it can do an up to next. We have the tolerances, and when we go over to the different styles of threads that we can generate, we'll talk a little bit more about the rest of those settings. All right, so I'm looking for the center, and we'll right-click and select, and that puts it to where if this hole moves, this hole will chase it, will follow it. All right, so based on scale, it looks like maybe they had a millimeter taller, millimeter lower. We can go back and adjust as needed for that. So let's go in and save. So we can file save. So this is going to be the C block. I am, let's see, got to locate my file locations. There we go. And we're going to make a new folder for assignment 6. Make sure that I can type. Double check my my numbers there. Okay, can't type on the other one. It's like, wait a minute, why didn't those go in order? All right, so this is going to be the C block. Save, and I'm going to go ahead and leave these open as I go so that we can bring them into the assembly, because I'm thinking that this is going to go pretty quick. All right, so we need to make some choices. Again, looking into my magic crystal ball of design intent. If I go into the top plane, when I bring this into the assembly, it'll be in the correct orientation, and I'm not too worried about it bringing it into the drawing. All right, so on the right click, we've been doing the S key. I also want to mention the right mouse button context menu, sketch entities, and if I go with a center point straight slot as opposed to just a straight slot, then I'm going to start at the mid and drag out some distance, and that gives me my slot geometry. So once I have that in place, I'm going to need a number here. So let's fly that back in. Take a look at this. So we generated our slot, but it's actually going to be an op-round because we're making it a positive. Radius of 12 both ends with 55 and a diameter of 12. Oh, okay. Oh, one's 16 and one's 12. All right, so they're not the same. All right, so let's go with the radius of 12. And the 55 could go to the outside, it could go between the arcs. If we wanted an overall distance, then I would look at definitely doing the arcs so that we could have that min-max center condition. And then let's go ahead and include, so since I did the right click and sketch entities, I'll go with that again. And we'll find the circle. Oh, I got ahead of myself there, so I did not place the circle before I went to the select. So make sure that that gets in the right location. 16. So all I'm looking for is that coincident relation to the endpoints of my center line so that we can have that, that geometry. And then features, extrude, and that was 10 millimeters. I don't know if there's any real advantage to making it bend plane, but since I did bend plane, we'll see what effect that has when we go into the to the assembly. So 10 millimeters, quick double check, and we'll save this as the arm. All right, and these names we'll kind of verify as we go. So we mentioned the pins. So let's go with the pivot pin, the vertical first. And I'll retrieve that real quick so we can take a look. All right, so circle M12 and 14 millimeters on the upper. So that means there's going to be a little bit of a step there. So that might be better to do the revolve after all. So the major diameter of the 12 millimeter would go to and then step up to the 14 millimeter diameter. All right, so let's do that. If you see it as a revolve and you want to do it as a revolve, go ahead. Since I said I was going to go with the circles. All right, so last time we did the sketch entities off of the right mouse button. This time I'm going to go with the S key and the circle. And then this feature, let's bring that out a little bit. I can come over to the extrude boss base or go up to the features. Probably my least or less popular would be to accept it and then go to the S key and go to the extrude boss base. All right, so again, preferences, know that they exist and that you have those as choices. All right, so 12 millimeters by 20. Open up a new sketch. S key and circle to 14 millimeters. So if I was doing this as a revolve, I would do the quarter, and then I might even include the chamfer in the end. So looking at this, and if we looked at previous versions, that was probably what I did. All right, so this is one of those interesting, we have a 75 overall. So 75 minus 20 is 55. So I could do 55, but if I wanted that to be an actual 75 dimension, we would go to from surface, face, or plane and pick the bottom. Well, maybe. All right, so that gave me an offset. So not a good choice there. So let's just go back to the sketch plane in direction 1, offset from surface. There we go. That's more what I was looking for. It picks the face. It went to 20 millimeters. And if I reverse the offset, okay, let's make that 75 so we have some distance for it. Okay, that's not doing what I expected it to do. Oh, let's reverse the direction then. All right, can't forget that I have all of those options. So the trick here is that I need to verify that after I finished, that I end up with 55 millimeters from the face and 75 millimeters overall. So let's run through that again. Okay, didn't quite want to go back that far, but let's go with the extruded boss base. All right, so I was thinking from, but I should have been thinking offset from surface. And when we rotate over, we're going to pick that bottom surface. Now I don't have anything on the preview, so what I need to look for is what is the main toggle, and that goes in the right direction. So basically what we're doing is telling it take and start the 75 millimeters from down here and ignore the geometry, start from the sketch plane and do the math for me. All right, so regardless of how this goes, this will always end up being 75 millimeters in our logic. Opening up a sketch, and I want to, let's see, if we just go with the center rectangle. All right, we could have done this off the S key or the right mouse button again. So off of the rectangle type, even if we get in the rectangle and realize that we would like to have the center rectangle, this is going to give us the center line construction lines, and by placing it at the origin and then setting to equal, since it's 9 millimeters square, I could also apply the dimension to both sides, but what I would like to do is 9 millimeters, not exactly a common wrench size. Get my scroll wheel mouse working here. I think I'm zooming. Okay, so 9 millimeters, not exactly a common size. If I wanted to bump that up to 10 millimeters or down to 8 millimeters, then I would like to be able to just change that one dimension. All right, so right click, extrude. Well, I didn't exactly tell it to do the right thing there, so cancel. Let's try that accept, and with sketch 3 still selected, I can hit the S key and tell it to cut extrude. All right, so that's going blind 75 millimeters. we need to end up being 15 millimeters. And here is the flip side to cut. All right, so that says instead of cutting the interior region, whatever the exterior region is, that's what I want to remove. So we go ahead and accept that. Those are pretty sharp. And then the last will be to put the 3 millimeter chamfer on the bottom. So 3 millimeters by 45 degrees. We go ahead and accept it, and we'll save it. All right, so this is the pivot pin or screw, whatever the threads you would like to call it out as. One more, new part millimeter. And if we did that, I don't think we need to do that one as a revolve. This one probably will work out a little bit better with the S key, the circle. We'll put our 10 millimeters in. Features, extrude. You might notice that I have a habit when I'm not thinking about the right mouse button or the S key of going up to the features, and that's fine. Whatever you're most comfortable with. And when I default, that's pretty much what I default to. Okay, so 42 millimeters, okay. Does not say there's a chamfer on the other end. And again, I'm not worried about the threads. We're going to deal with those later and go a little more in depth. All right, so the let's see. So this is the arm pin or the lock pin. Again, whatever it's to be. And that will finish out our parts. Except for one minor detail. I just looked over at the print again, and if I go back to the C block, I kind of missed the 10 millimeter at the center. So that being the case, I want to say that given the gap, it probably was a 12 millimeter, so I'll update that. So we're just going to give it an extra millimeter. I think realistically, depending on what we end up with for a function, half a millimeter would be more than enough. It just depends on the clearance. So I need to rotate back over to the face. I've been pre-selecting, so when I pick on the face, it knows where I'm planning to put the hole wizard. So let's just do this without, in case. And an M10 by 1.25 is probably pretty common. M10 by 1 is fairly fine thread. Okay. And then if you see this 3D sketch, please do not go into the 3D sketch just yet. Pick on the face that you want. And because I drew this at the center, I'm going back to the origin. And let's double check the type. And up to next is fine. We go ahead and select it. Control 7 to the isometric. And then my middle mouse wheel is not zooming very well. And then we'll do a control save. So there's might have even been more. So we're going to make those adjustments and changes as needed. And we're ready to go into the assembly